Hey everybody, it's Sunday at 6 p.m. So that means we're on here talking to you lot. I appreciate you all joining us. Today we're going to be talking about Israel and Hamas and that horrific exchange of hostages that's been happening. It's really got to me, that, so I'd like to talk about it and see what you guys think. We're going to talk about reform. We're going to talk about America, JD Vance. We're going to talk about Tommy Robinson. So let's get my panel on and we'll go from there. Hi, Ruben, are you okay?
I'm good, Mark. Good to see you, man.
Laura, are you good? And Julia, are you okay?
Yeah. Hi there, Mark. Hi, everyone.
Viva la Revolution says, evening, Mark. Hello, mate. Nice to have you watching. Okay, so I want to start with Israel and Hamas and the hostage exchange, what happened this week. It really got to me. I think it's the most barbaric thing that I've ever seen. So I'd like to get your opinion on it once I've just had a little talk about what I want to say, and then we'll go to the panel and see what they have to say. And if you're listening at home and this has affected you or you've got something to say about it, then please do put your comments in there and I'll read them out and we'll try and answer your questions as best as we can. So this week, Hamas have been exchanging hostages with Israel. And I think the ceasefire agreement that they've got and the hostage exchange agreement has got is, they take 4 hostages from Hamas and they have to give 600 hostages back. Wow. I think that them 600 hostages that were supposed to go back, that they're holding off on them now. I don't believe that's happened, and they've told Hamas they are going to keep those hostages until certain criteria is met. Because what is happening is Hamas are parading hostages around and putting them on a stage with guns and a baying crowd. Now, this crowd are Gazans, by the way. These are Palestinians. Yeah, these are the ones that our government want to house if they decide to flee. These are the people that were supposed to have no food, horrific circumstances. They've got nothing in the world, but they've all got nice haircuts. They all seem nice and well fed to me. And they are standing in a crowd watching babies in coffins being given back to Israel and cheering. I've seen many, many videos of Palestinian women going, "Oh, praise Allah," and all this kind of thing. So it's rubbish. The propaganda that's been coming out of Gaza is pathetic. You don't believe a word of it. This week, they had one of the hostages kissing the Hamas soldier on the head, and then he did it to another one as well. So all the left have been putting out this video going, "Oh, look at the circumstances. Look what actually happens." But there's a video that doesn't get put out of before that, when a Hamas soldier goes up to the bloke and whispers in his ear with a gun in his head, and he's actually told him to kiss the other two on the head. So don't believe what the left are trying to spout out, because it's rubbish. But let's go back to the Bieber's family. They handed back the bodies of 2 babies. One baby, and one 4-year-old boy. They handed the bodies back. They said that they'd been blown up in an explosion by USA bombs, by the way. They said that it was the USA bombs that killed them. Forensic tests have been done, and those babies were murdered with somebody's bare hands. They'd been beaten and then strangled to death and then left in tunnels until they were released. Those babies belong to another hostage, a man who was released the week before. I don't know if people know this. He was released the week before. Gaunt, no food, nothing. And also they gave back a body of what was supposed to be the mum. In a barbaric twist, that body was not of the mum at all. It was of a Palestinian lady. I believe the body of the mum has now been handed back. These games, what Hamas are playing, are barbaric.
Mm-hmm.
It's not needed in this world. And I've said before on a video that I believe that they should just flatten Gaza and let America come on and build on it, and then do what you will with the people. But we don't want them here. I don't want them here.
No.
Starmer says we can have them here, but I don't want them here. But I'm going to go to the panel because I'm getting a bit worked up. The Patriot Designer, evening, mate. What does he say? What's this planet? 1 bedroom, 1 kitchen, and a living room. Yeah, Julia's on the bed. I'm in the studio. I've got all my producers around me. You won't be able to see them, but I'm in the studio. Ruben's, are you in the kitchen, Ruben? Yeah,
I'm in the kitchen. Yeah,
he's in the kitchen, so we can grab some food whenever we like. Julia, she's in bed, so she might get a bit tired of it all and just fall asleep. And then we've got Laurie in her normal position on her sofa. So cheers for that, Sam. Yeah, well spotted. I actually hadn't spotted that, to be fair. We've got another message here. There's no name on this. If you put your name, mate, then I can give you a shout out. It says fuck Islam, fuck Palestine, fuck Hamas, and free Palestinians from Hamas. Now, I agree with the first 3 bits. Fuck Islam, radical Islam, fuck radical Islam, fuck Palestine, and fuck Hamas. I agree with that. Did you know why I agree with that? It's because of the way the people of Palestine have acted all the way through this. He says free Palestine from Hamas. They don't want to be freed from Hamas. Palestinians are Hamas. Have you not seen the shows that have been putting on with dead bodies of babies being handed back? Crowds of people all whooping and hollering and shouting Allah Akbar. It's fucking nonsense. Ruben, say something before I lose my...
Well, listen, Mark, I thought you did amazingly well to give the précis of it that you did, because honestly, I would struggle to say all that you said and to hold it together. It's one of the most disgusting things I think any of us could possibly witness, what they've done with this exchange. And the main thing for me, like the only thing that I can hold on to that stops me from just like becoming apoplectic with rage or just breaking down, to be honest with you, is to recognize that this has to be a wake-up call for the West to recognize that this has no place in our society whatsoever. And you know, if it does one thing, I pray for that family, for that father. I cannot even imagine what they have done to that man.
It's barbaric. I mean, he was released the week before, you know, skinny, gaunt, and then they have the nerve and the barbarism to next week give him his babies back dead.
Yeah, I mean, it's just I mean, this is the true meaning of terror, because it's like you want to ripple out and affect as many people as possible. So not only have they done the barbaric deeds to that family, but then to that man also, and then to all of us around the world watching it, you know. And if it does one thing, then it must wake up, because I don't know about these people who can possibly justify Hamas as being some kind of freedom fighting organization. That is something, if you're still there, then God help you, because you need some kind of like radical brainwashing technique to get you out of the place you're in. But those people who do see what Hamas have done with this has to be the wake-up call to recognize, you know, obviously we've had however long, it feels like a lifetime of these ongoing protests in our own country. See, look, I mean, I start losing my words, to be honest. But obviously the people that attend those protests, there are those who are Islamists and they have their agenda. And then there is the renter mob who joins up with them, right? Then there's the lot that we've seen on every protest movement in the last however many years. Your Hope Not Hates and all those that join up with them. Now, this is our perfect opportunity to recognize that renter mob is treasonous as well as the Islamists, right? It is. They have no place in our society if they think this is all right, you know. And I'm not advocating anything by that. If anyone's listening in, I'm not advocating being the source of justice myself. I'm saying that if this is our opportunity to recognize that the Soros-funded renter mob are as treasonous as anyone else, because they're backing these people up, right? And if we can get just that one recognition out of this from reasonable people who've been looking on, trying to make up their mind about Hamas. You know, I could go into the history of Hamas. Hamas is not a reasonable organization. They come from the Muslim Brotherhood, through the PLO, Yasser Arafat, all that lot, that trace back to a man, Hassan al-Banna, who thought that it was okay to go and have cups of tea with Hitler and get Hitler to train his men in how to deal with the Jews in that neck of the woods. So these are not reasonable people. These are not reasonable people, but there are reasonable people out there, and they have to wake up to the horror of this and stand with us, because what can you say? If you don't, I don't know where your head is. I've got no idea where your head is.
I'd say, Ruben, people that believe that they have some kind of justice movement, then, you know, give your head a wobble, because it's the opposite of that. Viva la Revolution says exactly what he's been saying. We need to make our stand now before it's too late. Cultural replacement is on our shores. Our grandparents would be turning in their graves. They gave their lives for our freedom, and this is what is happening. The guy that's got no name that was saying fuck Islam and fuck Palestine, he says, very true. Hopefully Trump flattens the place. We've got wicked lady long. Palestinians are Hamas. These hostages handovers are sickening. They truly are. You're quite right. And Kelly says, murdered 3 babies. I'm the great-great-granddaughter. Who are you? The great-great-great-granddaughter of? Remember, Jesus was born in a matter of baby unit in Jerusalem, but his dad and mum ran from. Children, head hostages. Put my head up, Act 2000, and says, okay, not making sense too much, Kelly. So we'll go to Julia. Your thoughts on it, please.
I couldn't watch. I did have it on, and I had to turn it off because I couldn't actually believe my eyes. The poster they had behind them, the propaganda that they clearly use with the people in Gaza, they have literally been brainwashed. And you're right, Ruben. They'd need some de-brainwashing program, because all of them that were in that crowd, it was like a big celebration over babies' dead bodies.
Yeah.
I'll be honest, I had to turn it off because there's only so much I can actually take in here. And that was my limit. And that poor man who now thought he was getting his wife's dead body back and his baby's dead bodies back. And it wasn't even his wife. Did they do that on purpose? What kind of people are they that would do that? And then, to my surprise, today I flicked TikTok on, and I was looking, loads of live videos came on. They were protesting in Leeds with all the Hamas, the Palestine flags. And I just thought, did they not watch that exchange? Did they not watch that? I can't understand how people can support that at all. And it's so hard to speak about it, to be fair.
Yeah, I had to watch it because I do stuff like this, and I need to report on stuff. I was crying. I won't lie about it. You know, when babies are involved and you hear of how they were killed and how long they were in that tunnel on their own. I mean, that baby, the baby. Is one thing, but the 4-year-old, what he must have gone through, because they reckon they were killed about a month after they were taken hostage.
Dear me.
So they've been down there for all that time. It's really bad. Kelly, Kelly's putting a lot of messages in that are not making sense to me. So what I'm going to do, Kelly, I'm going to put a link for the. You said that you want to come on and talk about it, so I'm going to put the link for this in the comments. Hit it and join us, and I'll get you in, and then we'll see what you've got to say, because I'm not making up because I've probably not got my glasses on. Patriot Designer, how they managed to make it all that design work and get the posters made, etc. It baffles me. It's like every release is like a big event to them to broadcast. Quite right, and they can't be done by amateurs. Someone is behind the scenes organising these things for them. Quite right. Don't know who. Laura, what's your take?
I'm just sitting here, and this is a question for everybody who's listening to us. Is this the first time that it's resonated with you just how batshit bonkers these people are. Have you not seen what they've done in the years leading up to this? They don't negotiate. They're terrorists. What they've done is standard playbook. That's why I think there's a user in Israel called Vivid Prowess. He's been bleating on for the last few months about what if the Babir family, if the children have been killed. They knew that the children had been killed because they could feel it, because there was no other way around it. That I will not listen to anybody who tells me that the Palestinians are, what's the word? That they're involuntarily being dragged into this. This is a mass organisation. It's a cult. The people in Britain are to blame, because you've got people like Owen Jones, who goes on the march all the time, pro-Hamas, gays for Hamas, blah, 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 blah. Hamas put out a statement saying, one of the mullahs said, if you come anywhere near us, we'll kill you because you are giving us a bad name. These people, they're not joking when they say things like this. This is history. This has been going on for I don't even know how long. Look at Rachel Riley, look at Tracy Ann Oberman, look at all the people that raise the issues that we are facing today, because it's a non-stop event of terrorism, and our government are doing nothing to protect us. Absolutely nothing. I saw Hamza Useless come on yesterday and say something about how we have to give protection to the Gazans. No, we don't. And everywhere else it's being denounced, but not here. The UN is a prescribed terrorist organization. They feed Hamas. They look after Hamas. They do everything for Hamas. Hamas is a prescribed terrorist organization. We've had the UAE stand in and say, you are giving Islam a bad name. But no, the UK just trundles on regardless. I'm not shocked at what's happened. I'm deeply saddened, but I'm not shocked, because they are absolutely feral, awful creatures. They're awful creatures. These are people that have died on video 9 times during the war. Every time you see them, there's a child that's been killed, and at the end of the video, there's a child sits up and scratches itself, and then it's not a surprise. We really shouldn't be surprised, and we need to get tough. We really do.
We do. The mainstream media, all the shit that they put out is ridiculous. They talk about the Palestinians, how many people have died on their side, that bombs have been landed on them. And you know what? At the start, I had a bit of, people are dying and it's wrong for both sides. I had that inside me, but now after seeing everything that's gone on, I couldn't care 2 hoots for them. Yeah, because they were there in their droves watching these bloody babies being handed over, and unbelievable. Any kind of empathy I had for them has completely gone. Viva Revolution quite simply says we need a revolution.
Lawfully,
yeah. And he says they will not stop the camel jockeys. There will be a holy war. Maybe you're right, my friend. And also, it's called an atom bomb. I kind of agree with you, mate. We do need to do something. There needs to be a revolution here, a peaceful one. But how you get a peaceful revolution is beyond me. I'm just going to talk about my council tax strike thing just for quickly here while we're on that subject. Everybody's still in there. They still seem to be up for the fight. If you're watching and you're from that group, then we're going to do this. I'm going to do this no matter what the numbers are. I'm going to try to do this. But we need to get those numbers up from 6.6 thousand to nearer to 20,000. Yeah. So we've got to. I'm talking to Paul Thorpe. I'm talking to a lady that's put me in touch with a lot of decent people. So hopefully I can get that message out there. But also, I've had telephone call and a swap of numbers with the farmers' protest. Somebody from the head of that. So what we're going to try and do is we're going to try and do a unified protest on the day. Looks like it'll be April the 7th now because that's the Monday. So the farmers are going to do their thing. We're going to do our thing. We're going to cause chaos and we'll see what happens. So that is going to happen. So please bear with me. I am still working on it. I'm talking to the farmers protest this week. Okay. Ziggy says, There are no moderate Muslims. They don't speak out against atrocities committed anywhere.
Could that be down to fear, though?
Yeah.
Because they're terrified, aren't they, of being killed for going against Islam?
Listen,
I did think that.
Yeah, I know Muslims. I'm friends with Muslims. I've got no issue with Muslims. I say this again. I said it in court. I've got no issue with Muslims because there are some kind, nice, definitely moderate Muslims out there. But you're quite right. There are Muslims that do not speak out about this stuff. You see when things happen in the UK. Look how Birmingham happened. All those Muslims on the street with machetes and knives. So they follow a religion which celebrates death more than what it celebrates life. So I can't be on board with that no matter what. So I try and toe the line as best as I can. But ultimately, they're a death cult that rejoice in death, that rejoice in martyrdom, that wants to kill every Israel, and they want to convert everybody else in the world because Islam wants to take over. Let me tell you that. Islam wants to take over the world, and we have to stop it now. We have to stop it now because the ones that are trying to do this are not moderate Muslims. They are not moderate Muslims. They are radical Muslims that are trying to infiltrate European countries. Hopefully, I pray that Germany get it right this next week, and they have to.
When do those results come out from that election?
This week, I think it'll be quite soon. I think they're voting, aren't they? Tomorrow, I think it is.
Today. Oh, Germany.
Yeah,
it's today. It's today. The exit polls are already coming out now. Yeah.
And what they saying? I haven't looked.
They're saying AFD in second place at the moment, but with a I mean, theoretically, the people have voted right wing, so there could be a right wing coalition. Of course, the way it works out there in European politics is that's probably not what's going to happen. They're going to steal it like they did in France, you know. So it doesn't look good at the moment. But that said, the turnout has been really massive. It's been like 50%. So it could be that this exit poll is propaganda to try and dissuade the last few voters. So it could be a Brexit moment. Let's hope.
Yeah.
You know, whoever's voting for not the right is wow. You know, because Germany got a lot going on over there. They have a lot of incidents, and they are all migrants that are doing this.
And Mark, if I could just jump in, I mean, that's really that comes down to, I won't speak for long, I promise, but that's really the big problem that we spoke about last week as well, isn't it? Is that this has to be, you know, whether we talk about moderate Muslims or not, this has to be resolved from within that community. And the people you're talking about who are, decent individuals, it's probably in spite of the ideology, because the figures are not good, right, in terms of people who have sympathy for this. And the worst problem is that we have our own people backing them up and excusing them, because that's a huge problem, right? You know, that's a huge problem. And that's where the reckoning has to come in terms of when we get to the point of actually assessing the damage of all this in the future, that, you know, we have to consider this a treachery, you know, because it is.
Absolutely, mate. Let's get through some comments. Aesthetics educator says the person to blame is Starmer and all the PM since Blair who have allowed them in. Don't forget the Tories were in before. Before they've had 14 years, so that they've got something to blame here. I know
Mark, it doesn't matter if it's Tories or Labour; they all work for the same people.
They're all one party. Absolutely, the Uni Party. Kind of agree with it, but there's other people that are to blame here. Our open borders was an experiment. Let's not forget that. Starmer has been on TV saying it was an experiment, which has gone badly wrong. Revolution says we need to wake up now. You're quite right, mate. We do, and it baffles me that some people are not awake to this. But there we go. He also says that they are vermin, Mark. I agree that some of them are. People of Revolution, I know you must be proper right, and I get it. I get why you're talking like that. Not all of them are, though, mate. Let's be honest. But certainly the radical ones, I would agree with you 100%. JMR says the government is in on it. It's been infiltrated by Muslims.
Yes.
Maybe. And
100%.
There we go. Aesthetics educated. They don't know the meaning of peaceful. They are barbaric in everything that they do. Again, I agree with that. But there are decent Muslims around. Let's not forget that they are. I'm friends with one. And
I think we're talking about what we're talking about, aren't we? What's gone on in Israel and everything.
Absolutely, but that's where this comes from. This hostage exchange, which is going on, and the barbarism of putting them on stage and rejoicing in the fact that they're handing back. Every single person what's there needs eradicating, in my view. Lots of comments on it. Aesthetics educator Sadiq Khan bought his title. He donates only to Labour and only to Islamic Muslim causes. Viva Revolution, they are a disease. Ziggy says, look what Sadiq Khan said after Manchester bombing. He didn't condemn them.
Yep.
You're quite right. They have been infiltrated our government, and anyone who votes for Labour is for Muslims. Quite right again. Lots of questions that, but I can't get through them all. Let's see if I can pick another one. Yeah, you're quite right, Sam. Sam Jones and Nick Lowles is another agitator, which needs himself sorting out. Quite right, is a vile piece of work. So I'm going to leave that there because I will get worked up by it. I have got worked up by it, and we've had a lot of response from it. So thank you for all your messages. And I'll get back to you after the show, and I will answer every single one. Let's move to Julia now. Julia's going to talk about Tommy Robinson and his condition and what's going on with him in prison. I've got an interview this week with Richard Inman, who's very, very close to Tommy. So I'm going to be asking him a lot of questions about Tommy and what's going on and etc. And I'm going to talk to him about the march and what happened at the march with the police, which me and Ruben saw. But Julia,
I want to talk about Tommy Robinson, but before I do that, I just need to briefly go into the ECHR. So at the moment, the UK remains a member of the European Court of Human Rights, okay? And I want to take this moment to highlight Article 3, because it's essential to understanding the concerns I feel I need to raise, okay? Article 3, bit boring, but bear with me, states that no one shall be subjected to torture or inhumane or degrading treatment. They define torture as the deliberate infliction of severe mental or physical suffering. They define inhumane treatment as intense distress or pain. And they define degrading treatment as any condition that strips away dignity and causes deep humiliation. So with that in mind, I feel I must speak about Tommy Robinson, a father of 3 children currently held at HMP Woodhill for a civil offence. This is not about whether I agree or disagree with his views. This to me is about basic human decency. He spends 23 hours a day in a small cell. He's been denied visits from friends and family, including his own son. Recently, for the offence of speaking to this son, his access to safe food was restricted for a week, and his exercise has been reduced to just twice a week. As a qualified psychiatric nurse with 23 years experience, I understand the devastating impact PTSD can have on people. And I will say with absolute certainty, Tommy's PTSD will be worsening daily. The treatment for this diagnosed condition has several needs that are not being met. People with PTSD need social cohesion, social connection, yet Tommy is being isolated. They need proper nutrition, yet he's been left with dangerously limited food options. Physical activity is essential for managing PTSD, yet he's confined to a small bare cell with only 2 hours a week where he can exercise. Although I'm not sure how much exercise he will manage on the limited daily calorific intake that he's having to endure at the moment. He needs education and personal growth, yet he's denied access to all the prison programs for safety reasons. Now, prison segregation in the UK is strictly regulated. Beyond 42 days, it needs ministerial approval. Yet Tommy Robinson has been kept in isolation for over 116 days. The Justice Secretary, Shabana Mahmood, a barrister and MP since 2010, is now the minister with the authority to approve or deny extended segregation. She's approved it 3 times now. Given her legal background, I am sure she recognises his treatment in HMP Woodhill is not just excessive, it's a clear violation of Article 3 of the ECHR. Excessive isolation can cause cognition problems, it can cause people to become psychotic, and it can lead to people losing their sense of reality. As a caring, trained psychiatric nurse, I strongly believe that no one should be treated this way. It is about dignity, fairness, and the right of every human to be treated with compassion, no matter what their views are. How and why is this happening in our country? Why is it not being covered by the mainstream media? And why am I the only medical profession shining a light on this cruelty to another human being in the UK? What's going on? That's the end of this week's Julia rant.
Julia, is he being held on grounds of terrorism? Because that's what I remember reading on the
not
judgment, that they'd taken his phone away on grounds of terrorism.
That's another
and
thing.
Him.
That's another thing, Laura. That's a thing that he has to face on I believe it's the 21st and 22nd of March, where he has to go to court because they arrested him on terrorism, because they can arrest anybody. They could come and arrest me or you on terrorism, and they would then, you have to answer the questions. Whatever they ask you, you must answer those questions. So they said to him, we want the PIN number for your phone, the PIN code. And he said, no, I can't give you that because I've got confidential things on there. I'm dealing with kids that have been abused and they don't want the details out there. And I've got sources on there that I don't want you to know about. I am a journalist. Well, exactly. I am a journalist and I will not give you access to that. So they are doing them on the 21st and 22nd under terrorism charges. What terrorist things has he done? Nothing. Yet, but they can legally arrest anybody under suspicion of terrorism. Anybody. Search
and
them.
then mistreatment of Article 3, etc., and whatever, our human rights.
That's right.
Act.
That's right.
That comes second to grounds of terrorism, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Yes, it does. Sadly,
so that's their justification for what they've done.
But it's not at the moment. He's not under. He's not in prison because of terrorism charges. He's actually in prison currently because he played the film Silence.
Contempt of court.
And it's basically, he's in prison at the moment for a civil offence. Civil offence. The last time there was somebody in prison in the UK for a civil offence was 1962. 1962. Wow. That's how long ago it was. And there was 2 of them, and neither of those 2 were in isolation, which we call segregation in our country. But I can't get, I don't care who it is. I hate Keir Starmer with a passion, but I wouldn't even have him treated like this. It's wrong. It's against human rights and it's against everything I trained to do. They are making his PTSD, which he's open about, they're making it worse. And they're doing it on purpose, clearly. They're going against the ECHR 3 times. Shabana Mahmood said, yes, it's fine to keep him in isolation. He'll end up not knowing where he is, not knowing if he's seen someone or not. He'll end up psychotic. He could be hallucinating, auditory or visual. Hang on, I need to cough. That's my lung infection. I've talked too much. And to me, as a qualified nurse, I've got to act professional at all times, and that's part of under the NMC regulations. And I am acting professional now because I am calling this out, and I want the people held are responsible to be held to account for this travesty of justice. He's in there for a civil offence. I don't care if he was in there for terrorism charges, although he's done nothing related to terrorism. So I don't know what's going to happen on the 20th and the 21st of March. I have no idea how that's going to go.
Why have people been denied their visits? What was the reasons given? The official. I saw Katie Watkins one.
Yeah, that's what they're using for everybody.
Yeah, a lot of Tommy's friends are journalists and they've got platforms. So they started off making them sign non-disclosure agreements so they couldn't talk about what they'd spoken about with Tommy in prison. You know, fine, okay. But then they just stopped them all. They just said, no, no, no. So I believe he had a visitor. Last week, there was 2 people from a different country. I have no idea who they are. But they came out and they went against the non-disclosure agreement that they both signed because they were so disgusted at what they saw. They actually said he looked frail. I believe he's 37 years old. How can a 37-year-old man look frail unless he's ill? And I can't bear to listen to this or to watch what's going on to a man who's been arrested for a civil offence and his video silenced. If you watch it, it's just the other side of a narrative that the mainstream media put out about that Syrian child in the school and this other boy. But this other boy went through hell because of it, couldn't sit his GCSEs. And I believe he actually moved in with Tommy Robinson for 3 years for his own safety. What's going on?
Yeah, I've heard his condition is not great.
Yeah.
Hopefully, I'm going to get a lot more out of Richard, who's
Yeah.
very, very, very close to Tommy this week. So that will be out on Friday. So please look out for that.
Good.
But you're quite right.
Uh-huh.
They've been after Tommy for a long, long time, and they've finally got him. So they're making an example of him.
Yeah.
That's
I
what's
just
happening.
wanted to put my head above the parapet because no other medical professionals are coming out and saying that's wrong. Last week I said wrong doesn't cease being wrong just because everyone's doing it, and right doesn't cease being right just because nobody's doing it. Somebody's got to speak up for this man.
But Julia,
he's human.
Rupert Lowe has put out a thing saying that he intends to pursue this.
Yes, I've
he's
seen
not
that.
happy that human rights are being ignored.
Thank God for.
I mean, we've got 5 MPs.
Yeah.
Who are doing the work of. Well, it goes to show you don't need that many MPs, then, doesn't it?
Yeah, Rupert Lowe is doing a sterling job.
Ugh.
I think he's brilliant, absolutely fantastic.
And may it be another moment where there can be a sense of accountability and recognizing that, because this whole thing, I don't know Tommy's thinking for him, but this whole thing has smacked of political interference from the beginning.
Absolutely.
What he was doing journalism about, right? That was Tommy's point. That there was interference from different quarters, so that's why he made the movie. And then his decision to have contempt of court presumably is founded on the notion that, again, political interference. We know Hope Not Hate were involved in the whole kind of prosecution of Tommy at that stage. So what does this look like now? As Julia's rightly said, there has to be a decision from the executive as to what's happening with Tommy's treatment.
Yeah.
And with PTSD, I mean, I heard that they were justifying this on the grounds of keeping him safe, apart from, those who could do him harm. Well, if this man has PTSD and you're putting him through those conditions, that is not keeping him safe. That's
terrible.
So the whole thing is like proving to the outside observer, or not necessarily proving it, but certainly making more and more people hopefully stand up and think, wait a minute, political interference seems to be all the way through this, right? So what's going on? What are they doing to this man? So I'm hoping that the kind of normie out there, the guy out there who hasn't been paying attention to Tommy's plight, will start to think, hang on a minute, this has got to be a moment of rethinking it,
Absolutely. I've worked in a prison. I worked in a prison for 5 years, and I've worked down segregation. It's a tough gig. It's a tough gig down there. It's a tough gig to work down there. Never mind about being a prisoner down there.
I can imagine.
You are locked up for the most of the day. Your meals are passed through the door. The only interaction is with the prison officers, who very rarely have time to talk to the prisoners in a way that what they say.
There must be a different way to manage this situation, because he's not in there for being violent. He's not in there for being a risk towards other people. He's in there because he's a risk from other people. I know the risk assessment, that's how they're probably getting away with it. However, when he was in Belmarsh, the conditions were much better. Why on earth did he have to be moved? It's so wrong. It's so deplorable. I hate to see people treated badly in our day and age. What's going on?
Julius, whilst you've been talking, Kelly has been doing her thing. I've had about 50 messages from Kelly. The first one says, you people are the issue in mental health. Kelly then goes on to say, "We hate people like you. Do you know that?"
Oh, lovely.
So a lot of love there from Kelly for you.
That's
She's
very
put a lot
kind.
of things. She's put a lot of things. And Kelly, I would love to talk to you after the show, because you've obviously got a lot to say, an awful lot to say. Let's be honest. Message after message, and like even other people are saying, Kelly, what are you doing? What are you talking about?
Julia, I've not met you, but I think you're fairly lovely, as for what I can tell, if it's worth anything.
I'm a really kind, thoughtful, caring person, and if anything's wrong, I will call it out.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and you're doing that, and thank you for doing
You're speaking from a perspective of you're upset that you're seeing another human being suffering.
Yeah, and I'm a nurse, so I wanted to educate people that don't perhaps know what happens with PTSD and how it needs to be managed, because they might not understand that. After all, it's been softened down from shell shock. The words, do you know what I mean? I can't remember which comedian said that, but it was a fantastic speech he did, and he's spot on. He was spot on.
Wickedly Long says, Rupert Lowe has been outstanding. You're quite right. If he said he's going to do something, he'll do it. So if he's looking into this, you got Rupert Lowe on your side, then you're doing. You're going to be okay, because he will follow through on what he says. Patriot Designer says, I've heard a rumor of JD Vance will be talking to Kia about Tommy. We're going to come to JD Vance a bit later with Rupert. He's got something to say on that, so just stay with us and we'll talk about that. But yeah, I've heard the same thing, Sam. I've heard the same thing. Listen, Tommy's treatment is wrong. What they're doing to him is wrong. He should be allowed his visits, no matter what they say in the visits. They should have the governor there with him while he has a visit, so that certain things are not said. They need to make, because you can't go into a prison, with a phone or anything like that. So there's no recording or anything of what he wants to do. I think that weren't they, Julia, I'll come to you. Wasn't there an instant where somebody was filming him whilst on a visit?
No, I think you might be getting mixed up with. While he was talking to someone on the phone that he was given in the prison, the other person he was talking to had their phone on loudspeak, and his son spoke to him in the background.
Oh, okay.
So that's how he lost his access to the canteen where he can buy sealed tins and packets of crisps. This man is living on tins of mackerel, tins of tuna, and packets of crisps, and for a whole week, as a punishment for speaking to the son, he wasn't allowed access to that canteen. So what on earth is he eating?
Yeah. Patriot Designer Sam says, Kelly, aka Nick Lowles. You could well be right, mate. You could well be right. Listen, Tommy's treatment is bad. I'm going to go into it in the week with Richard Inman. I will obviously any questions you have that you want me to ask Richard, then please do put them in the things, and I will ask them. I will ask the questions that you want me to ask, even if it's not what you want to be. Somebody's asked me to ask him where the money goes from the buckets from the marches. I'm going to ask him. Somebody wants me to ask him, so I'm going to ask him.
I think that's a big question mark. I get asked that a lot. I look at that a lot from a legal perspective.
I'm going to ask the question. I'm going to ask it.
Because apparently there are rumours that money gets funded in, and then it does a Zelensky. It goes missing.
Yeah, you're quite right. There's a lot of talk about that. So I will ask the question. We'll see what he says. I'm probably going to ask it at the end of the interview, once I've had the interview with him, because he might well just go bonk. And that's that. Right. Tommy's. We'll talk about Tommy next week as well. After
Thanks for doing that, Mark.
We're going to go to Laura now. Laura wants to speak about David Amis. Now, those of you who don't know, David Amis was killed by a I don't know. Let Laura tell the story. Laura.
Basically, I've been in touch with Katie Amis, Sir David's daughter. She has tried to put a petition together to get justice for Sir David, who was killed. He was a was he a councillor or an MP or
an MP?
In Essex, and then somebody broke into his constituency, and I think they murdered him.
Yeah.
So she's been trying to get justice for Sir David, and just like the grooming inquiries, everything's been shut down. Now, I have shared on X, so I'm not telling you anything that I haven't already done, and you can look through my posts and you will see that I have shared that I wrote to our MP here in London, in Barnet, who I will again say, I've told him, and I will say it out loud again, is unfit, incompetent, and he is a liar. And he managed to reply to my email telling me that he was very sorry about Sir David, and that, you know, that Prevent had come out with some reports and findings. So I don't even know. I shared that on Twitter, and Katie wants me to say out loud to everybody listening, if Prevent was such a brilliant thing that had set the record straight and they'd had their learning lessons from Sir David, why did we get Southport? So that is the point that Katie is trying to make, is that here we are, we're all petitioning, we're all writing, we're all following the legal rules that we can follow, and yet we still don't get anywhere. These are like pre-formulated responses. There's no heart in it, there's no care in it. I'm not surprised, it's Labour, I get it, that's another issue. What I'm trying to say is that I have forwarded that on now to Reform. I am the interim secretary of our Reform branch. So I've forwarded that through the channels that I need to forward that, so that it gets to hopefully Rupert Lowe. Because all we're doing is treading water here. We use the same words for every discussion every week. We're going round and round in circles and we're not getting anywhere. It's all very brilliant that Elon and Trump and whatever praise Farage out at CPAC and whatever. But the fact of the matter is that we need some action here. I had a really nice, very brief interaction with Ant Middleton, because he's planning to become the mayor of London. And, he's set that goal in his sights, and he is going to become the mayor. And slowly but surely, we need more Ant Middletons. We need more Rupert Lowes. We need people that are going to reclaim and protect our values, because all this wiffle waffle, mere puffery, we call it in legalese jargon, it's just not getting anyone anywhere. So-and-so wrote to me, tick. Did I answer? Tick. It's just pre-scripted, it's not from the heart, and nobody cares. I get the impression that no one in Labour cares. They're just on this trajectory, or they're drunk on superpower of they can do whatever they want, and they do it with impunity. And we just need to get together as under lawful circumstances so that we prevail. And whatever it is, protest marches, whatever it is, as long as we stay on the right side of the law, I'm up for anything, because we've really got to sort this.
Yeah, I agree with you, but staying on the right side of the law is getting us nowhere. Nothing changes. But I understand, you don't want to get yourself into trouble, but that's just a statement for me. I'm not saying that we should do anything other than peaceful and correct. But the bottom line is, we're doing that, and it's getting us nowhere, is it? They don't care. They don't care if we go marching in London. They don't care if the tractors block everything one day. They don't care if people are going on marches with banners. They just do not care. That is wild.
The farmers are going to be up in arms when you do that protest, because they've just dumped a whole load of illegal migrants in near Jeremy Clarkson down there.
Yeah.
They've just dumped a whole load down, left them to wander through the village.
Absolutely.
It's disgusting.
It is
disgusting. And I think the thing is, this, like, Labour don't care, and the set response, it's I mean, I completely agree that that's the case, because I think the mentality, the more leftist that you veer, there is this strong justificating sort of process, thought process, that the ends justify the means, that the whole thing is about power, like you said, that they're drunk on power, that there's that principles don't matter. It's like you got to get what they consider to be the job done. And everything we've spoken about tonight in terms of those people supporting Hamas, in terms of, you know, the way Tommy's being treated, in terms of responses to, you know, a man who they would immediately, you know, in their mind put on a lower, whatever they say, he'll be put on a lower priority because he's not part of their ideology.
Yeah.
You know? And apparently a very beautiful man, from what I heard. Everybody was very, very fond of him who came across him. But that's neither here nor there. Everybody has, as Julia was saying, everybody, we believe that everybody in this culture has a unique personal dignity and needs to be protected. And but ideologically, they don't come from that place. They don't, you know, and that's the big problem.
Do you know? Sorry to interrupt you here, but I must say this. I think the far left are far more dangerous than the actual far right that's spoken about. I really truly do think that now. I do.
I do. And I think the government has something to do with the left on these marches. I honestly do. Patriot Zionist Sam says, honestly don't think the Kia writes his own answers. Richard Tice received an email that he had to give him a heads up on what he was going to write, so that he was prepared when it was asked in PMQs. I think you're quite right. He's like a robot. A lot of them are like robots. They're just spouting out the same thing, the same dribble every week. Rachel Reeves is the same. This guy writes, I hope the farmers spray manure everywhere the next time they do their thing in London. That's the next step, I suppose. Would they get in trouble for it?
Yeah, get a bit more French, isn't it? Let's get a bit more French.
Yeah. But then if they've got thousands of them doing it, what can they do, really? You know, it's like that. That's why I wanted to do this counterattack thing, because it will actually do something to the government. It will hit them where it hurts, which is in the public. But the numbers are not quite there yet. You know, we need more. We need to triple what we've got for it to work. But it can work, and that's the way to do it. And if you watch the podcast I did last week with the guys who were asking, which was saying the legalities behind it all, and it was basically that you can withhold tax on the basis of that you believe that the government are funding a war, which they are. So it's an interesting watch. It's a long watch, and it's a bit like, whoa, I got so much from it. But go and have a look at it if you want to, and it will tell you the legalities of what I'm trying to do. Wickedly Long says, Julia, you are talking sense. So I just wanted to put that up because
thank you.
Kelly's they need to be militant, is what our friend says there. Okay, so Laura, you wanted to say there was a transcript that came out in the week from the Reform Party, basically saying of what they're doing and making it into a proper party, that it's not just him and Richard Tice. I don't know the ins and outs of it. Can you explain what they've done and what they're trying to do, please?
Yeah, this basically, let's just simplify this. Reform sort of got themselves galvanised into action just before the general election, didn't they? Nigel got on board. He was the promoter, and Richard Tice had been running the party. I think what happened was when Ben Habib left, he accused them of having a setup that was a CEO of a chairman of a company.
Yeah.
So Nigel and Zia set about, their task was to create reform and make it into, obviously, a political. They made it into a political party in a structure that is suitable and appropriate to be a governmental party.
Yeah.
Then Ben Habib then got the needle and came back on and said, yeah, but you don't have bank accounts for every branch. So I think Lee Anderson got involved at that point and said, yes, we do have bank accounts. Mm-hmm. The thing is that because they've moved so quickly, they've had 7 months and they've got all these members, and we've all had to go through various vetting processes. And then when we sit in the chairs for each branch, we have to be voted in. There is money given to the newer branches that aren't as established out of, I think it's sanctioned by headquarters. The idea was that we would become our own financially independent. In other words, that we would have a bank account.
Yeah.
I don't know what the process is for that legally and maybe accounting wise. I don't know how quickly that can happen. What I will say is that everything that they can do, they have done. Canvassing is crazy right now. Campaigning is crazy right now. Everybody is following everything to the dot of the I and the cross of the T. They're sticking to everything as legally as they can. Because if you remember at the campaign, we had some really bad actors that were going around slating people, and then we found out that they'd been paid and put in there. It was a plant. The reason that I'm explaining all of this is because in the last week, I've seen an uptake of Labour missives calling everyone to arms, to discredit reform, to call them out wherever they can. There's a whole campaign of discrediting reform. I have got someone that I speak to regularly who left reform and went to UKIP and would make a brilliant politician himself. But his argument is that he finds that he can't take Nigel Farage at his word. And my answer to that is, we're not here to take Nigel Farage at his word. We needed a promoter. We needed someone to rescue us, and that was him.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever happens in the future is what happens in the future. What I don't get is where Ben Habib wants to keep coming in and dividing the right. The more we divide on the right, the more the left will come in. So we either want to sort this or we don't. It's no different to you talking about Tommy Robinson. I've never really supported anything of Tommy Robinson. I've never really gotten involved with it. But do I believe that somebody should go to jail? Yes. But should they be deprived once they're in jail? Jail, legally, and speaking again as a legal person, jail is the punishment. You're not meant to be punished further inside jail.
Yeah.
So
Laura, let me just ask you there. As you've just said that, do you believe that Tommy should have gone to jail then? Is that what you're saying?
What I believe is this. There was a contempt of court order, and he was warned that he would go to jail. What I don't understand is, and I said this on a couple of programs ago, I don't understand why. Because all he did was show what he had shown to the courts. So how is that incriminating? You can't jeopardize a case after the case is closed and finished. He showed the stuff. The judge said, no, we're not taking that in. We've looked at your evidence. It's no good, and you're not to show it. Why? Because it can only be going down another road, can't it? Because how many other court cases have you seen? Johnny Depp didn't get told to be silent.
Yeah, exactly.
How many other cases have we had where they haven't been silenced once they presented their point of view? So
they just don't like the other side of the I suppose you could call it argument being portrayed. They just want in the mainstream media and on X or wherever their narrative. But other people like Rajamia, he's done it as well. He's come along and said that's not actually true. He has the real evidence. He's been arrested numerous times.
Yes, but he's been given an OBE, hasn't he?
MBE. He was given an MBE for the work that he did.
But what's going on?
Up until 6 years ago, I'm sure he worked. I could be totally wrong. If he is listening or if he gets to hear this, I'm sorry if I've got this wrong. But I'm sure he had a really good job working for Labour. And he was trying to spot who would be terrorists or who wouldn't and try and advise them. I'm sure it was something like that. Yet he's turned full circle and saying, hang on, that's not true. That's not true. That's lies. And we're being fed lies so that we will support things like the Ukraine war, like what the Labour government are doing. Oh, well, you can understand that. But, I used to be like that. And then I started watching and reading and I couldn't believe my ears and my eyes. Now I think
that's what's happening, Julia, is that the results. I met somebody, and she actually very nicely told me off because she took Nick Lowles to court. She won.
Yeah.
And the next day she had a knock on her door, and it was Tommy Robinson.
Yeah.
And I said to her, oh, no, you know, I've never really sort of supported him or whatever. I haven't got a view either way, other than I've never really supported him. I've always grown up with a fear of him that he's very far right. And she took me to task very nicely, but took me to task. And she said, he is a good guy who is fighting for his country. And if you say anything outside of those lines, then you're just absolutely wrong. My problem comes with, he was told he would get a contempt of court. And what she said to that is, he is willing to put his own life on the line to get the story out there.
He's a journalist.
That doesn't add up when you have all these other people going, well, where's all the money? And that's why I'm so sat in the middle of it all. Because having watched him, I no longer think there's anything to fear about him. All these stories when we were young, you know, he's very far right and he would kill you because you're not.
I've never met him.
Far right.
I've never met him, but I'll be honest, I have watched all of his videos, and I do find it quite difficult to disagree with him now. Rather than I would have said he's a far right racist. He's not racist at all. He's anything but. And I just think he's had a hell of a bad press. Anybody that speaks up against the state gets their name blackened, gets their name smeared all over the press. Look at Russell, what do you call him? That he's got long black hair. Him in America. He's been smeared. He's been getting quite close to a few things and telling us all what's going on. And all of a sudden, he's got loads of rape claims against him. You've got to question these things that are going on.
And I think there's a place for saying that Tommy knew what he was getting into.
Yeah.
I mean, that's one thing you can say that in terms of the decision to release the documentary. Okay, there's also a question before that, which is like, why did they put the injunction on that law? Why has that happened? But here's the thing. Like, in terms of being united, there are going to be those who push the envelope and choose to suffer, like Tommy's chosen to suffer, to say, I'm going to take that on the chin, and I'm going to go because presumably he doesn't have trust in the court system.
Why would he?
Well, I don't now. Do you?
No, not at all. So how would there be? So what he's saying is, how can you be guilty of contempt of court for a court that is contemptuous towards everyone else, right? That's his point. And I think the greater point in terms of remaining united, what people fear on the right is that the left gets corrupted by a desire for power and by ideology. The right gets corrupted by political expedience, by playing being too nervous about pushing the envelope. And my whole thing is like, let's make sure that wherever you stand, whether you're UKIP, Reform, whether you're a culture warrior, whatever it is you're doing, just keep pushing together. Just keep pushing together.
We've got to stay together.
We need to stand together. And so
they want to divide us.
Yeah, exactly.
We've got to do what Tommy says, which is unite the kingdom.
Yeah, that's right. That's
absolutely.
Right. We do.
The left are definitely have an agenda now. I've heard a lot more Labour MPs talking about reform in derogatory ways. There's definitely a campaign going on too.
Mark, they've now reckoned that Reform are the opposition.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know if that's because the polls have shown that Conservatives have fallen so far down, so south. But they are tackling reform. That is the call to arms, is to
smear them
and get against, oppose reform.
Yeah. Well, let's be honest. Reform are the opposition. The polls say that quite clearly. The intention polls, they are the opposition, and I think they will win the next general election. But we have to, like everybody's saying, stay together. I interviewed UKIP leader last week. Name's
Nick Tenconi,
sorry. I interviewed him last week, and everything he had to say, I was like, wow. He took a lot of sense. And it almost made me like, oh, should I be voting UKIP? But my vote will not go to UKIP, because the simple fact is, if people vote for UKIP, then we stay with Labour. And that's fact. So we need to get behind a party that has a chance to do it. Reform are set up, ready to do it. They're in Parliament. They've got 5 MPs, and they are ahead in all the polls now. Reform are ahead of the. If we do not get behind one party, then we're fucked, because it will be Labour. It will be Labour for 20 years. We have got one opportunity to get them out, and that comes in 4 years' time.
Didn't Nick Tanconi say that when it comes to the election, that the support is with reform, that he will tell UKIP supporters to vote reform?
I asked him that very question because I'd heard the same thing, and he basically pulled me up on that one. He says, "Where did you hear that?" And I said, "It was on X. It was, quite a few months back." And he said, "No, I've never said that." I said, "Okay, so you're saying you didn't say it. So let me just ask you now, if we're in that situation, would you step aside and tell your supporters to support reform if there was a general election tomorrow?" He said, "No." So that's that put to bed.
Yeah.
But I still think, okay, so we could fall into a trap right there, okay, couldn't we? And go like, oh, well, turn against Nick Tanconi and UKIP or whatever. So, but here's the thing, like, if they're pushing the envelope, like you agreed with so much of what he said, right? So I see it as kind of like a scrum formation, like let him push and let's keep all pushing in the same direction and not worry about that, because actually, yes, worry about it. Like, you've got a great point, Mark, that we need to win an election, right? That's a bottom line. But nonetheless, let's not fall for tricks to try and get us to be, having a go at one another, because there's a lot of good stuff coming from a lot of different directions, and I think the whole notion of sort of one, like Laura was saying, one person being the person, that's not the way it needs to be. We need a whole movement, and we need to keep pushing together.
Yeah,
absolutely. Well said, mate. Okay, so E.S. Palmer said it shouldn't be. This is about Tommy. He shouldn't be in a Cat B prison. Cat D, he should be in. You're quite right there. Billy Bob says hello, Billy Bob. He says covert recording is not submissive in court without permission. And E.S. Palmer again said he isn't racist. I've watched all of his videos, and he has more passion for Britain than most.
Yeah.
And I believe you're quite right there. This guy says we need to stay together, but how can we trust that it's going to happen when reform actively work with hate and not hope? I'll let Laura answer that one.
Do they?
I'd be interested to know more about that, because I would like to know more about that. In what way are they working with hate, not hope? I know Labour do.
Was it not over a particular candidate or something? Was that to do with a particular candidate that Hope Not Hate had come forward and said something about them? And
I don't know. If you're still listening, mate, if you're still listening, send us a message and tell us what you mean by that, because I'm interested to know what you're saying there, and I'm sure Laura is as well.
Because I'm pretty sure that we're not working with Hope Not Hate. I think I would have been thrown out of branch after what I've said about them if we were. I've been fairly vocal, and it's not been very nice.
He says Gwaine Towler openly admitted it in the summer.
So, Gavin Towler said what?
He says he openly admitted it in the summer. Gwaine Towler.
He is part of the legal team for reform. So I'm going to message him and find out if they are working with him. I'd be very, very surprised if they are.
Yeah, me too.
Because Hope Not Hate are Labour. They're not right hand.
He also says Nick Tanconi also doesn't know if he runs his own Twitter account and tweets his own tweets. Wouldn't trust him as far as I can throw him. Listen, we're going to have issues with everybody. We've got major issues with Labour. There's issues we're going to have issues, and we're going to find that only bad things are really reported. You never get the good stuff. That's why Tommy's in his position that he is. Nobody talks about his good stuff. Nobody talks about all the good stuff he does with child gangs, grooming gangs. Nobody talks about that. All they talk about is that he used to be the leader of a far right movement that were.
He left that though because it became racist.
He did leave it, but people are saying that what he does now that is the same. But I don't believe that for 1 minute. I do think he's changed. I do think he was a bit vile when he first came on the scene. But he was left a typical
young football hooligan lad. That's what he was. But he's grown up. In order to be old and wise, first you must be young and stupid. Hey ho.
I agree. Sam says there was a whistleblower a while back, as I've seen that. It was Farage was working with UKIP. There was a whistleblower a while back, as I've seen that. It was Farage working with UKIP. Laura?
Sorry, what's the question?
He says, this is Sam, he says there is a whistleblower a while back, and he's seen that. It was Farage was working with UKIP.
I do remember Farage working for UKIP, because wasn't that how we started up the whole Brexit movement?
Yes.
I don't know. I've got no knowledge on this at all.
I'm pretty sure that Farage was in UKIP.
He was. He was the
he was
leader.
the leader,
And he drove the whole Brexit momentum forward.
Yeah.
He did.
And then when he disappeared, they brought Boris Johnson in. And he was meant to drive this Brexit agenda all the way home. So did you call him Sam?
Yeah, it's Sam. This is the guy that does all my stuff with my program. He does all my graphics.
Sam says that there was a whistleblower a while back.
Sam, if you're listening, which you obviously are, can you just put a message in saying what you've heard, please, so then we can just talk about it now. I want to put this one up. This is from E.S. Palmer, basically saying the same thing as the other guy said, and he said he did see a thing on X that Nigel had something to do with Hope Not Hate. I don't believe it would be a stupid move. So there's a few
we
people
probably need to research it a bit and find out, don't we?
Yeah,
I will ask that question tonight, and I will get you an answer as soon as possible. I can't see us working with Hope Not Hate.
Yeah,
I would not work with Hope Not Hate.
No, neither would I. I'd be rescinding my membership if that was the case.
Yeah,
yes, Farage was running UKIP, but that's when he was working with Hope Not Hate. So Sam's saying that when he was working for UKIP or running UKIP, that's when he was associated with Hope Not Hate. We need to look into this, I think.
Yeah.
I will find out. But what's the relevance? Because are they saying they think Farage is still working with Hope Not Hate?
I think that's what's coming through. Yeah. I don't believe that, but listen, Laura will look into it. She's reformed through and through. So let's wait, and we'll probably talk about that next week. We'll find out what Laura's found out, if you don't mind. We're going to move on to the last topic tonight, and this is for Ruben. Ruben wants to talk about our friend across the pond, JD Vance. Over to you, mate.
Thanks, Mark. I'm a bit worried now that it's going to be puffery, though, Laura. I don't.
No, it's mere puffery. Mere puffery.
I'm like, can we just cut this bit now?
Ruben, have you been sitting there for the last hour thinking, I can't wait to say that?
Yeah, I'm like, dreading it. You know, like I don't want to talk about this anymore. Anyway. No, I will big up the man, and I think the reason I want to big him up is because I think, quite apart from anything else, this week has been horrific, and honestly, I think so many people have just been like weeping, raging, you know, just all the stuff we spoke about at the beginning. It has just been too much, and for me to really watch, to be honest with you, I haven't been able to pay attention to much of it. But there have been some good things, and I think, you know, politics is downstream of culture, like those America First folks say out there, and it's true that, you know. So what we say in terms of kind of bigging up a momentum, a culture momentum, is really important. And I think JD Vance comes out of that. He's loads of people are talking about how great he's been this last week, 10 days. And I just want to sort of further that, really, because I think he's a good model for lots of people over here. This is happening in the context of there's a little bit of tension in the MAGA movement, from what I can gather out there, between the two sort of poles of the MAGA movement. The more Christian grassroots kind of bunch are a little bit concerned by some of the technocrat stuff, some of the Elon Musk kind of side of things, especially pushing AI. You know, a lot of people have had problems with IVF, and you know, Trump pushing that, and so there's quite a bit of tension, more tension than people might realize over here. And of course, you know, vice presidents usually have been a bit obscure, haven't they? You know, we don't, yeah. And I think people also are probably quite suspicious of JD Vance because of the whole Mike Pence thing last time around, and the tension that went on there between he and Trump. But just as an individual, he people can certainly change, and he's certainly done that. You know, famously has come out of Rust Belt states and an opioid addicted mother, and became a journalist with the Marines. Went to Yale University, became a successful venture capitalist, and then Republican senator in Ohio. And he is clearly a man who's on a war footing now with globalism, and we need as many people like that around that we can get. You know, first of all, he was willing to take on his own US bishops, his own US Catholic bishops, about their role in the infrastructure of smuggling people over the border. Looks like you know, they've not been just kind of, you know, meeting wayfarers in the road, as it were, and helping them. They've actually been involved in kind of, you know, it's been far more ingrained than that. They've been receiving vast sums of money. So he's playing quite an incredible kind of prophetic role, even to his own church, and saying, you know, get your house in order. We're taking this money away. Obviously, the USAID stuff is revealing the extent of that horror, and I think more and more will come out about that. So he's a very brave man in that way. He's even teaching the bishops about their own Christian theology, because they seem to have forgotten that, you know, the church has always taught that you get your own house in order first, right? That if you want to welcome the asylum seeker, by all means, that's a very Christian thing to do, but we need to have a fully integrated and happy and functioning society into which they come. So, you know, if you're a, you know, a person like myself, I need to look after my wife and children first. Then I need to have some responsibility over my street and community, and then my nation. And only then is it become, you know, that we're welcoming vast, you know, we're welcoming people in. So he had to remind them of their own theology, and he did that bravely. And then, of course, the famous Munich speech that I really do think will go down in history. It was an incredible moment, and he did it with such grace. He was completely forthright in his rejection of their ideology, and the brilliant way that he did it was that he said, "Look, hang on a minute, guys." He said, "You talk a lot about fighting against hate speech, fighting against whatever it else is you think you're fighting against. What are you fighting for? Have you forgotten who you are? Have you forgotten what our civilization stands for?" Because if you're not fighting for something, look back through history and you'll notice that people who are censoring and taking away freedom have never been the good guys, ever. Right. So in a nutshell, he just blew the whole thing open, because that is the truth. They have forgotten who they are. They don't actually have any love of their history, of their civilization. They're trying to build something that is antithetical to the whole notion of freedom that we've stood by. And it's freedom within parameters, like, you know, within Christian parameters in our civilization. So it's not, you know, it's not unbridled. You can't do absolutely anything you want to do. It's to do with having principles, having virtues, wanting to live for the good, not only of yourself, but for the good of the other. And J.D. Vance just kind of reminded them of that in a very effective way. And what was their response? Well, their responses was to start crying, literally. I mean, they if this doesn't reveal the kind of madness of the ideology of the globalists, then I don't know what will. They literally were crying after he gave this speech. So which was one of the, I mean, I think just from a sort of Schadenfreude kind of, you know, satisfaction, it was quite nice to see these very self-assured globalists suddenly realizing that you know, their whole worldview might be under some serious threat here, you know, because the game might be up. People might be seeing through it from the highest quarters. Absolutely. So anyway, that's it really. I wanted to, you know, big him up and see that if we can be, because what he did was he was very, very clear. He was very, very gracious, and he completely refused to take the kind of, you know, they play games, don't they? They try to kind of get you to kind of, you know, circumnavigate what you're saying, and you know, they're not doing that. They're not doing that in any way, shape, or form. And long may it continue, and may we learn from it and do the same here. You know,
he was very clear and concise, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was. Brilliant. Yeah.
It was.
Before he came into office, wasn't he the one that was saying, you know, you all need to take a very good, long, hard look at yourself. You're releasing your culture, you're losing your identity. And, you know, there's a difference between being tolerant and integrating and everybody all gets on together and just basically succumbing to another way of life, which nobody has voted for.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. My opinion of him is he's a very well-spoken individual. He just takes no shit, and we need somebody like him over here. 100%. His speech was phenomenal. That's the best speech I've ever listened to, and it was correct. Everything he said was right, and people do need to realise what's going on here. And do you know what the thing is, Ruben, is people do realise, but they don't just do anything about it. They just go, "Oh shit, yeah, this is happening," and nothing changes.
Yeah, we have to get active, and it's not enough just to, you know, that's where the mere puffery comes in. Is if we just sat here and we said, you know, that's great, that's lovely, like it, you know, I like to stick a thumb up, you know, and then do nothing. That's absolutely true. But I tell you just a little close on this as well. There was who's that guy, Hugo Rifkin? He does Times Radio, I think, and he was talking about the tricks that they play. You know, like he was interviewing Dave Rubin about the speech, and he tried to set up this kind of like completely false dichotomy between. He said, "Oh, so you know, freedom of speech is more important, is it then, than tanks rolling over the border?" And you know, Dave Rubin did what JD Vance would have done, which was like, yeah, if you want to put it in those terms, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, not listening, not playing your game, you know, and I actually got into a very brief spat with this guy on Twitter because I put like, that's a completely false dichotomy, and he came back to me and he said, it's JD Vance's dichotomy, don't shoot the messenger. And I said, no, it's not. JD Vance is setting it up as a completely false dichotomy, deliberately to prove that you guys play games, you know. So you've got a different messenger. Don't fall for it, you know. It's like just zero tolerance of trying to play those games, you know. And I thought it proved to me that there's only one way of negotiating with the kind of whole globalist mentality, and that's just to go, no, didn't vote for it, don't like it, don't want it, stop it, thanks, no more, you know.
And that is what we have to do now, is just be resolute and not be worried about what labels are thrown at us. Just say when we're wrong and say when we're right. But with these labels just cannot affect us anymore. You call me what you want, but this is my view on what's going on. It's not right, and we're not going to stand for it anymore. And all these politicians that are looking to phrase their statements in a certain way, it's all nonsense. Just speak your truth and let us see what we're dealing with. Yeah. Because all this avoiding, evasion, there's no accountability. And I cannot wait personally for the day that we can put some of these people in front of the courts, not these courts. We need to review our courts, but in front of the courts and get them tried. Because what's going on here is pure out and out treason.
It is.
We're living in a dictatorship. We're not allowed to, we're opening the back door for Apple. We're doing this for this one. It's just nonsense. It's nonsense. Yeah. And when does
Starmer meet Trump? Is that tomorrow?
He's fifth in line, isn't he? So they had Nigel out for CPAC. Then they were going to meet Italy, Germany, another one, and then Starmer.
Right, that'd be interesting. What comes out of that? JD Vance has already said that he's going to speak to Starmer about the hate speech and free speech over here. So that's going to be interesting. You're quite right, Laura. Everybody should speak their truths. However, I spoke my truths last year and I ended up in jail.
I know.
Just be careful what you're saying.
What was your grounds?
Yeah, just be careful.
What was your grounds for going to jail? What did you get?
For inciting racial hatred.
Oh, for God's sake.
Southport.
Oh, I see. Sorry, I thought you meant you'd done like what Tommy had done.
No. I just a load of posts stuff to Southport, just saying it how it is, a lot of truth. But I was quite punchy with it. got a knock at the door, 7 officers, then got carted off to jail. Obviously won my trial. They used about 110 pages of posts at the trial, and it was built up all from the start. It was like, right, this is the picture of the man that's stood before you, and they were building a picture of me all the way till it got to the end, where I was talking about people coming in on boats and radical Islam and all that kind of thing. So it was quite a engineered thing. They didn't expect me to say not guilty. Everybody was saying guilty, as we well know. But I knew I needed to go not guilty. And we weren't. So just be careful what you're writing. That's all I'm saying.
We have to be very careful how we phrase things. What we don't want is we don't want our culture and our identity to be A, erased, and B, to be compromised, because if we don't agree, then we're racist. That all of that we can speak out about. We just don't use rude words. Don't say it's this person or it's that person. Just make it far more general and just say, I'm not prepared to surrender my country, my culture, my identity, and don't say to whom. Just say, I'm not surprised, and I'm not living in fear with unvetted people coming into the country and just running amok with knives. It's too dangerous. Things like that, that is not.
But sorry, this is the thing, though, that we are. It seems like we're having to compress ourselves and accept what's happening without saying too much about it, and that's the wrong.
So frustrating.
It feels like we have to make excuses, and we have to be compressed about Islam and about Muslims and about what's happening in the UK. You know, people are going around and killing our children and raping our women and doing crime. And it's a lot of it is migrants. But we're not supposed to say that. We're just supposed to say, oh.
So another way to say that is to say, I'm not living my life in these unsafe premises with unvetted hordes of people coming in here that are danger to the society. And that way, all you're doing is stating a fact. You're not going to live in.
They're even making facts racist, though. That's the problem. If you put a fact on X, somebody will say that's racist, and you think, how is it racist?
It's not racist. It's not racist.
And it's so difficult in
this and that's what we just have. You can't
safely.
Yeah, you can't engage with that anymore. It's just like no, it's not. No, thank you very much. And we just find a different way of saying, maybe a slightly different way of saying the same thing, and we keep saying it.
Yeah,
we have to remember as well that they had their January the 6th out there, right? They had there are big investigations going on about all the stuff that went on during the last 4 years of the Biden regime, and the same thing will happen here, please God. So we just have to pace ourselves here a little bit.
We've got two choices, haven't we, Rupert? We can either be illegal, shout and scream, put nasty words everywhere, and get sent to prison, or we can do what we're doing, which is our call to action under legal premise. But mark my words, I stand by what Rupert's just said. We will have our day. We will see these people held for treason. And yes, it is going to take 3 or 4 years, and it is going to be hell, and people are not enjoying their lives at the moment, but we will prevail, because we won't be in jail.
We've got to.
There will be an investigation as to what happened to Mark and people like him. I believe that in the future.
I hope so.
I believe that,
I disagree with what they're saying. If you've got something to say, fucking say it. Yeah, because I've had enough of talking nicely and watching what I'm saying about what's happening to this country. They put me through court. I said not guilty, and I won my case. And they had hundreds of pages of what I'd said on there. But the jury looked at it all and said, well, he's not inciting anything there. He's just expressing an opinion. And I got off. Yes.
You didn't. I wouldn't say you got off. You didn't get off with something because you didn't do anything wrong.
Exactly. But they put me in jail for 3 weeks. They had me on tag. They took my passport. I was not allowed to go on social media for 3 months. It made my life awful. It made my life hell. I had a curfew. My son and my wife went through so much with this. And then I was put back in jail during my trial because I was having seizures and I was really ill. And they thought that I was doing it in front of the jury for sympathy, which was not the case. I was horrific. I went to hospital 7 times. I had paramedic call out 6 times.
Oh,
It was a really, honest to God, last year put me through hell.
yeah.
But I'm telling you this, I am not going to be safe with my words anymore, because they can do it again if they like, and I will say not guilty again, because I'm not being racist. None of the stuff that I say is racist. It's facts, and it is, and we should be able to speak our truth without having to mind what we say. So we don't.
I totally.
This person or that person or that person.
Yeah.
Bullshit. That's what.
No. And let me just clarify what I meant, Mark, which is because I don't think we're in that much disagreement. I think it's not about like holding you. You know, you got something to say, you say it. We should have complete free speech in that regard, right? Within the parameters we've always understood. But what I'm talking about is pitching together, like finding strategies whereby we can work together to get this message across. Like,
and do what, Ruben? Do what? You say we need to come together and work together, but to do what?
Well, like we're doing here, that we're talking. We're not talking in euphemisms. We are talking about.
We can do more. We can, once we have all come together, as Rupert said, we can then deliver a consolidated. What we need is facts. So, for example, let's say that Rupert is successful in getting data out of the Home Office. Okay. The last consensus data that was meaningful was what, 21, 22?
Yeah.
Something ridiculous like that. You look on the Law Commission, you look on the ONS, and you can find your data. If we can then say X amount of this has happened and it is attributed to that Y, here's the stats. You can't be done for racism, because all you're doing is referring to the stats, which is why they're stopping it. So we can then take that up to whoever it is. You can go to Nick Taccone if that's who you want to go to. I would be going through reform, because they've got 5 MPs in Parliament, and saying to them, right, we've got this. I mean, Rupert Lowe's doing it anyway, but we've got this. This is what we know to be true. Rupert, can you do something with it? So we can do stuff with it, but we need the information.
Yeah. And we've got to work together and keep moving forward, going through that treacle, and keep thinking there's light at the end of this tunnel.
There is. It's just tough. That's all it is. It's just very, very, very hard going.
You said put the meat on the bones in that way, and then get it to where it needs to go. That's what I mean, Mark. I don't like, because people were picked off to prove a point. Right, which is, you're on your own. You're making that statement. We're going to try and pick you off, because you saw through it and you had the courage, thank God, to do what you did and say, "Hang on a minute, I'm not guilty of what you're accusing me of." Right, so I'm not going to fall for that trick. Then you've now got this platform, right? So God bless you for that courage, and God bless you that you're seizing it, right? We do have to do stuff, and what I'm saying is, it's about how we put things together and move the agenda forward. Not about like hiding your words. I'm not saying that.
No.
I'm saying it's how we put it together, and that's all, so that it does get stuff done. Not so it's just talking or you know, I mean, we need to let off steam. We should be allowed to let off steam, but we need to get somewhere with it as well, you know?
Absolutely.
And if they're not inciting, they can't get you on grounds of terrorism.
I was arrested on grounds of terrorism. That's what I was arrested on grounds of terrorism.
Because you were inciting people to violence.
Well, I wasn't.
No, those were their grounds.
That's what they tried to say,
absolutely. And I don't want to talk about it anymore. Listen, we've been going for over an hour and a half. I just want to put a couple of messages to you, Laura. E.S. Palmer says that Nigel was the leader of UKIP. Sam says, yes, Farage was running a UKIP, but that's when he was working with Hate Not Hope. And the guy who's got no name says the Twitter account Amoxidon blew the whistle on it. So that might be an account to have a look at, Laura. All these messages will be on this. And he says, yes, they were working with Hate Not Hope, and still last year. And he says he sent me a DM, mate, about Hate Not Hope and reform. So I'll have a look at that and I'll forward it to you, Laura.
Please. And then I'll take it up and get you some answers.
Right. We'll say goodbye. Julia, thanks for joining us today. Laura, thanks again. Amazing. And Ruben, I was going to call you Rupert then, because we kept talking about Rupert. Ruben, thanks a lot, mate. It's always a pleasure. So that's it for tonight. I hope you've enjoyed it. It was a long one, but we got through a lot of things. And what needs to come out of this is we do need to stand together. The guys are right. We do need to stand together, but we also need to start banging the drum of what's going on here. Everybody that's on the right of centre needs to be banging the drum and shouting things out as it is in an appropriate way. Thanks all. Thanks to ES Palmer. Thanks, mate. And I'll see you next week.